Let's get started on our welt pocket. The first thing to do when you want to sew the waistcoat is to cut out that area where the waistcoat pocket has to sit, because that's like a really fantastic template for all your positioning. Right, brave people, we're going to make the faux welt pocket, and for that you need to have the fabric facing upwards with the wrong side, or the fabric underside, and we're going to put our interfacing over the area in which we're going to put our welt pocket. Of course, the sticky side needs to now face down so that we can iron on the interfacing, right? So we pin this on, then we take the pattern piece off, simply flip it over and do the other side. Do not forget, we're ironing this interfacing onto the wrong side of the fabric. Again, gluey side facing down, pin it on with a couple of pins just so it can't move, and then we can iron both of those on. When you iron something on, you want to do it without steam. Make sure that it's securely stuck and that it doesn't come off, and when it is, then you know it's okay. Now, the next step is to actually draw your pocket on. So we're putting the pattern piece back on, make sure that it's exactly on top, and then we mark the corners with a pencil. Now we connect the lines, and that is going to be where we're going to be sewing. So you want a really sharp pencil, you want to make sure that it's dead straight. And with my ruler here, I can also make sure that all the lines line up and that I've got a 90-degree angle when I draw the sides. So I've just lined this up with my center here. Wonderful. Because this drawing really is one of the most important things when you're doing your waistcoat. Once this is done, what can possibly go wrong, right? So 90 degrees angle. And now, sure it's nice and straight. And now we're ready. So now we're going to turn over the waistcoat, and we're going to take the pockets and put those on. And in order to get it into the right position, we're going to put our pattern piece back on, and then the pocket should be 1.5 to 2 centimeters higher at the top edge than the actual pocket, and there needs to be an even overlap on either side. So now I pin that into that little gap that we've created, and I do the same thing again. I just remove my pattern piece. It's dead simple like this. And these pins now will be in the way, so I take them out and I put them into the corners instead so that they're not in the way when I'm going to do my sewing. Maybe a pin here at the lower end so it can't move. Turn it over, and now we can sew all the way around the pocket. You want to reduce the stitch length to just above 1. Almost like your buttonhole stitch, but a little bit bigger so it doesn't fray. If you leave it on the normal stitch length, this will fray, so it needs to be reduced. And then you want to start not on the corner but somewhere in the center of the pocket, and you follow along that pencil line. Make sure that the pencil line goes right where you have that little gap on your presser foot so that you know that's correct. Go really slowly and keep it nice and steady. When you get to the end, there we go. Needle in the fabric, turn it, and go back down. The important thing is to do both pockets the same. So in my case here, for example, I'm just a wee bit off my pencil line to the left. As long as I do the same on the other pocket, and take that as my guide, then both pockets will be exactly the same. And again, kneel down and come over to the other side. Really slowly. You'll love this technique. It's so simple. And now when I come back to where I started, you want to overrun it. You don't want to like lock your stitches in. You want to overrun a bit because you don't want a thicker bit there that gets in the way and makes it look uneven. Look here, you can see how it just went up in the grain a tiny little bit. In an ideal world, you wouldn't have that, but you're also not going to see this. This is quite common when it's a very structural fabric. Now I'm going to cut my welt pocket open, and I'm doing it so I have more seam allowance at the lower part, which will also give my pocket a little bit more firmness. You can, of course, cut it through the center as well. That works just as well, really. So I'm snipping it. And then I'm going to just where my triangle starts here and cut into the corner. A lot of people are always a bit scared to cut in the corner, and then it will never quite sit as beautiful as if you are really brave. Go on and cut right into the corner. So, you know, release that inner braveness when you are there with a scissor. Go to the other side. Maybe you want to use an embroidery scissor instead of a big scissor like me. But if you haven't sewn a lot before, a really sharp embroidery scissor is a really good tool to have. Next, I'm going to pull through my pocket to the other side. Look at that. It's awesome, this technique. Love it. There we go. And pull it so the corners really come out. And like most things, it's easier if you are ironing open this seam before you iron it up, which is what we're doing next. So get your iron, use lots of steam, and really get that crease in there. And this makes it so much easier now to just fold this up and iron it again, really pulling out the corners. There you go. Already looks very, very nice. I'm giving this another press because I want it to be really flat. You can hold it down. You could even put a book over it for a couple of seconds, and that will make it really flat too. Turn it over. Look at that. Isn't that great? So my next step is to do the lower one. And I open up my fabric. There we go. And now I can roll over my pocket to fill that gap. And I can iron this nice and flat. There's still some movement in there. It's not as firm as I would like it to have. So you've got two options here. Number one is with the seam ironed apart. So you can see it's nice and flat like that. Or what you can do is you can iron this up as well. So now the fact that actually it's cut higher up makes it a little bit thicker already. And that gives it more structure, and the pocket will literally come forward a bit. So you have to decide what you want to do. Now I'm going to show you the method where you iron it apart this time. Both is possible. So make sure that you get this really straight. And then decide whether or not this is firm enough for you. I'm going to put some Vilene on it. You can put the Vilene or interfacing underneath your seam allowance or over the top. With my linen, it really made no odds where I put it. So I'm just going to put it right over the top, iron it on, cut a little bit off here. There we go. Beautiful. And then I'm going to press that back on. And over the top again. One of the things that is so important when you start sewing, you always have to do the ironing at every step really, and that gives you a beautiful result. And now I can sew all the way around, and what I'm doing here is I'm using my needle position to create a straight line. So some people find it really hard to keep the distance right. So if you are better with just guiding the seam that you can see through the center of your presser foot, you can move the needle position over to the right 2 or 3 steps, depending on what you want it to look like. And then you are just going straight down, and the needle will then automatically have that same distance all the way around. That is one option. I find that a lot of beginners, because they do still look at the needle, which you shouldn't do, this might be harder for you. So, you know, have a little test run and see which of the methods you prefer. Either you just using one of the lines on your presser foot that you line up that center with, or you're moving the needle over. Both is of course possible. And because I want this waistcoat to look like really fantastic, one of the things I'm going to do is to not lock in the stitches, but again, I'm stopping where I started, and then we're going to pull the threads through. There you go. Take a needle and then turn it over and pull those through. So you've got all 4 threads there, and then you can just knot them. That's the easiest way to do this. Such an easy pocket. I've seen lots of beginners actually make this pocket and say, I thought this would be so complicated. But like this, it's very simple. Give it a very good press. And now we're going to fold up the inner pocket here. It's a very small little pocket because we don't want it to be caught in the seam when we put it all together. There we go, across the top and then across the sides and the other side, and we don't want to catch any of our front piece while we're sewing. That's something that I have seen. Somebody said, I don't know, mine doesn't look like yours, miss. I went, So do not catch the front. You really need to fold it over. All we're doing is closing that pocket. Off to the sewing machine. There we go. All the way down. Beautiful. And at the top. And that's it. Pocket done. You can be really proud of this and it'll look absolutely stunning. Look at that. Very professional result without the difficulty. Now we're ready to sew our waistcoat together. See you there.